Oh man, that is good.
Hey everybody,
Right.
thanks
Good
for coming
morning.
back to another episode of Freight Gong Friday. Today we have a special guest with us, Jennifer Brennan. Thanks, Jennifer, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Hi Jennifer, how are you today?
I'm great. How are y'all?
We're good. We're good.
Awesome.
Yeah, busy, but
Yeah, I hear you. I
is
know.
good.
Sometimes I don't even know what day it is. So
No worries. So Jennifer, you're on the show Shipping Wars.
yes, I am. No, I was.
That's pretty okay. Cool. I kind of want to talk about that a little bit. If you could tell us how did that come up to join the show Shipping Wars, and how was it like?
So I ran into. It's crazy. I had ran into this producer in Austin, and I was a promo girl at the time. I was the official Bud Light girl for the University of Texas at the time. For 2 years, and I just ran into him with a couple girlfriends. Like, I'm looking for a girl that can drive a truck and trailer. I'm like, okay, what, and so we met, and they cast me with 60 other girls, and I got it. I was like, who can? Anyway, that's how it happened, and it unfolded, and then when it happened, I was like, I don't know if I want to do this, but I loved it. So
Okay.
How long
Cool.
were you on the show?
I think it was 7 seasons, I believe. We hit syndication, so I did all 100 episodes, and that's my buddy right there, and God rest his soul. Him and I had a special connection behind the scenes. So
you had no participation in transportation prior to this, obviously, right?
Well, okay, not I would help out. Like my cousin she does cutting for a living. They have a big ranch, and they have a 2 separate entities. They have a cattle trucking company. They have five trucks. So I would kind of just help them a little bit, not and then she does cutting horses. So that's just basically just livestock. So I did not have my CDL. It was just more like livestock.
Got it. And so you got you were cast for the show and got a CDL and just.
No, I only hot shot. I did just anything.
Oh, okay. So you didn't need to get a CDL. Got it.
Yeah.
Did you consider getting your CDL?
I actually did, because Cummins had reached out to me, and we, I can drive a stick, but when it comes to the bigger trucks, do y'all know remember Daryl from Ice Road Truckers?
Oh yeah.
So him and I became really good friends. I was actually supposed to be on that plane with him, which is very scary. The one that.
Oh wow.
Yeah. It was going to be for a new show, and it was just very scary. He actually tried to teach me, but the automatic was so much fun. We raced, and I actually beat everybody. It was really neat for Cummins. So I did think about it. Yeah. Yeah. And everything that happened to me, that's just my life. Everyone thought it was staged, and it was not. It's it happens in my everyday life. So
Yes.
There's a clip right now that Jen's pickup turns into a disaster.
they all did.
They all did. Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about this one right here, particularly in this video? Do you see that?
Yes. So originally I was supposed to be picking up some things that did not fit into my trailer. I'm supposed to go to California. Well, so last minute we end up getting some water. Yeah, it's a long story. So I get some water, and we actually going into a hurricane, and I delivered some. Well, this is going to show you where it doesn't fit. So, because the guy sent me the wrong dimensions, so it made me look really retarded on TV. Yeah, I was. You can't make this up. I'm like, this is just.
Did you know it wasn't going to fit when you were looking at it right here?
No, I did know. You're going to see my face, how humiliated I am. I actually forgot about this load.
Wait,
so
Jennifer. Yeah, go ahead.
Were these loads you actually were they procured by the show themselves, or how did this work?
I'm going to be honest. Some of them, yes, they want obviously for an interesting show, And I made the mistake of saying I only want to do livestock, and I don't want to build a crate. Of course, well, what do they do? Feed off of that, of course. And I'm there all day building crates, because it's just not me. So, and then I made the mistake of saying, I don't want to go to New York or LA. Well, yeah. And speaking of that, I got to New York. I don't know if y'all saw that episode. I took as soon as I turned on to, I think it's at 42nd, like downtown. I don't know how people live in New York. I was passing a city bus and I got past his mirror. Well, he continued to go forward. And I was like, well, what am I supposed to do? Because do I need to be more aggressive? I mean, I can be an aggressive driver. Well, took his mirror off. And how humiliating. So everyone had to evacuate the bus in downtown New York. So just like
in downtown New York, on top of it.
Yeah, the stuff that happens to me. Yeah, this is another one.
So what was some of like the most, like the craziest moment on that show that you remember, that always maybe sticks out to you? I'm sure there was many of them, but what was one that always will always be with you, for the rest of your life, type of thing?
It's funny, you're pulling up scenes and it's crazy how you find these, because I did so many, but I think what people didn't see that behind the scenes, the friendship I had with Roy. So moving a rocket from and America does not know this little tidbit about me. So I had the mask on. Everyone thought it was staged. So Roy smoked and would not let me roll the windows down and had a cat in the car. So we had to go from El Paso to Alabama. And so that's a pretty good distance with a bunch of cigarettes. Well, no one knew I was 11 weeks pregnant because I had 2 miscarriages prior. So I was trying to be very, very careful. So I apologize. And I said, can you stop by a hardware store? So I get this big mask, and I actually found the picture the other day, and they were like, oh, it's getting so staged. I'm like, no, that's really me. But they didn't know why I had done it,
because you just didn't want to share with anybody yet. The reason.
Yeah. And
why wouldn't he let you roll down the windows?
Because it's Roy. It's Roy. And he was who travels with a cat? And he was very protective over me behind the scenes. And then this episode, I broke half the load. It was all styrofoam. So
hot boxing with SIGs is that's
crazy.
That's a different ball game.
Yeah. But it was very interesting. I ran into some very odd people. But overall I learned a lot. Roy taught me a lot, actually, when it came to, he would have been disappointed about this shipment, but just moving certain things. But the livestock was, moving the bulls with Roy was fun. He wasn't afraid of anything. I know I don't want to get in a pen with the hot bull. So, those things can jump over 12 feet. And most of the world does not know that unless you are in the livestock world. So,
definitely did not know that.
Yeah.
Were you strapping all these loads too?
Mm-hmm. Well, hence why that fork's broken. Humiliating, but yes. And look, you could tell I'm over it. I know I can't hide my emotions on it.
Jennifer, where were you sleeping? When you were driving?
So in hotels, we would.
Okay.
So
you spent a lot of time in hotels.
Yes. One episode could take 1 to 2 weeks. So.
Wow.
Okay.
And that's another thing people don't realize. Of course, we're on a show a couple days. But yes, because it was just so much. DOT law, I did have to follow those. Obviously now the e-logs, am I saying that correctly? Because I'm kind of I'm not, if I do anything, it's locally. So
you don't really need e-logs for local stuff as far as I'm concerned.
Yes. So I had to follow, and I would tell the film crew, look, I'm pulling over fuel. Y'all got to pee. Y'all got to do anything. We in and out. Cause it's adding an hour onto your trip. So it's I'm going to leave Roy would leave without him. So
I just out of curiosity, how, when you would record the episodes, how long would it take before that episode actually aired? The
turnaround was pretty fast. Or, I would say maybe a month. It just depends. Like I said, it was all like a blur because like I said, we did so many. You're pulling up so many different memories. And if y'all were actually to hear the things I was saying, and this, I mean, you forget that the cameras are on you because they become like family. You know?
So this is like a fake cadaver that we're looking at here.
Yes, and I was focusing on other body parts. That's my personality. I'm like a, but yes, they're fake cadavers. So I was saying kind of inappropriate stuff. So,
did you ever have any claims, Jennifer?
Any what?
Any claims? Did you get any accidents, or did you have like your product damaged?
No, no, I didn't actually. I mean, like the fork, for example, if that was like broken. I mean, I did feel horrible. It's not like I didn't show up and didn't care, but they used that kind of used as a storyline. But if I got pulled over, I did. Okay, y'all know Florida, how any trailers entering in, you have to. Y'all know this. They're very intense. Like you have to pull over any. Okay. And they don't just have one sign. There's like multiple signs. But Jennifer happens to miss all of them. I don't know how. And like 10 cop cars pull up. I'm like, what's going on? I'm with my camera guy, but we're not filming. We're just trying to get to the location. And because we weren't going to show from where I was, living to, I was just going to my pickup. So anyway, I don't know how I talked my way out of that one, but I was like, I mean, like I'm talking about 10 to 20 cop cars. Like they take this. I mean, it was pretty scary. I was like, I'm about to go to jail. So, but there's some like behind the scenes that we're not seeing. That I don't know how. I have really huge heart. I don't know, and I care too much about people. I don't want to say too much, but sometimes it gets me hurt. I think it kind of shows a little bit on. Like this one was a hard episode for me because it was in remembrance of Roy. So I usually don't cry on camera but I lost it on this one. So yeah.
Yeah, it seems like you guys are really close.
We were, and he was, bless his heart, like he put on a front. Like I think he had to be he was tough, but like behind the scenes, he always looked out for me. He really did. I will say that. Like, so he was, like I said, he taught me a lot.
Did you ever have to like, what was your least favorite load to pick up? Like type of load?
The New York, delivering. Yeah. I delivered it. I had to deliver to a high rise, and that was probably my least favorite, just because like the cop, like I was trying to find my insurance card to give me a ticket because I couldn't find it fast enough. So it was just it was just, I couldn't live there at all. Like,
should have just FedExed it, where they just like
for real
stop in the middle of the street and just take the ticket.
Well, they don't wait at all on you. So it's crazy how you're finding all of these. I've just bring back so many memories. So.
There's a whole playlist on YouTube just for you, Jennifer. There's a like A&E created it. No, it's like if you go here, it's it's Best of Jen Shipping Wars.
That's great. So the bull and the pig one is my favorite. But yeah, that's crazy. But so I love how everyone's like, "Oh, are you 52?" I'm like, no, I don't even know how that came about. I don't live in California. I'm 42. So it's like, it's so bizarre how like all this fake stuff came up. I just kind of gave up. Like,
where do you think it came from? Were people like posting on the internet or something?
I have no idea. Somebody says I live in California. I'm 52 or 54. I don't know. Because everyone's like, oh, like you're, even my friends that I've made here, they're like, you don't look like you're 50. I'm like, I'm not. So,
not at all.
No, I'm not. I just turned 42 actually. So, which is very hard for me. But yeah, it's just, I don't even try and correct people anymore. So.
What are you doing these days?
So I work part-time. I partner with a lot of people. I do sales. I'm a mom, which keeps me very, like I said, but I don't even know what day it is because I'm like rushing to either practice or lessons or games. I partnered if you heard Bayou Rum, I partnered with them. I'm with the legging company Sweet Flex. I've been with them for a couple of years. And I also Capital Heart. I kind of work with them a little bit. So that freight factoring company. So
Mhm.
Cool.
Do you any partnerships with any gongs? Any gong
gongs?
manufacturers?
What'd you say?
Any gong manufacturers? I see you're doing a gong load here.
No. That was,
Oh wow! That's
that
crazy.
was
I just noticed
no, do you not
that.
see my face? Like it was so like that's what I'm saying, that y'all. If somebody acts weird,
That's an epic gong. Oh,
no,
wow.
they made me lay in a chair afterwards, and they were playing gongs. Like what the?
Like therapeutic gongs?
I think so. It was like so bizarre. Like
Wait, you got to feature this
Wow.
on your website, Reed.
This
oh
this
my
gong
god,
is
I totally
crazy.
forgot about this episode. Like
This
what
is crazy because this is Freight Gong Friday, and we have a gong like
look at like no for real, like that was the weirdest. Like there were some weird people I met, like, and I hate to be that way.
I love the title here. It's a crazy client.
Gong.
That was
So crazy.
one of many, right?
Wow.
Wow.
This is
Well, I'll tell you one more thing. I want you to a little hush. So I delivered a Simpsons couch. Let me tell you this thing. And I walk in and the guy is crying because I found out his wife had gone into emergency labor, right? And I thought something had happened to the baby. And I was like, "Is everything okay? What's wrong?" He said, "No, I'm like really upset about. I'm really gonna miss that Simpson couch." I'm like, "What?" I like walked out of I was like, "You're not even in the delivery room." Like, I mean, it was like so bizarre to me. The people I met, I was like,
Wow.
like you're having a kid be born emergency, and you're crying over the Simpson couch. So it was just, I don't know, the people I ran across. I mean, all different walks of life. So
Some interesting characters, it seems.
oh yes, yeah, I didn't know what to do here, obviously.
So were you in acting before Shipping Wars, or is this your first?
No, and
it's not acting.
You were slinging Bud Light, right? That's what you were
I
doing.
guess let's not. I don't want to call it acting because it was like a reality show, right? But
no, that was not. No, that wasn't. I'm going to tell y'all right now. It wasn't acting. People think it's scripted, but it's not. Like that's not. They can't make this up. Like who acts like? Well, she might be acting. I don't know, but I was a promo girl, so I've been in a couple music videos, just from friends or people have contacted me, because I left a country dance in Texas. Like I was like a Malibu girl, Jameson girl. Like I was handpicked from Chicago for one of the I'm trying to think of what Wild Turkey for a big event in Austin. Dos Equis girl for South by Southwest. So I did a lot of that stuff before the show. You know, just living life, and so
I guess I'd imagine that it's a little bit easier to do. Not that like discounting the level of difficulty, but like the reality TV shows, I guess it's a little bit more relaxed, and you don't have to be like in character. You can just be yourself, basically. You know, and doing the job like for real. How did you see it? Like, did you ever get a sense from other people, like whether they like acting or more reality TV as a job?
what, like, you mean like the characters, or
Yeah, I guess what I'm asking is like for actors themselves, right? Like a lot of times it's very difficult for people to get into character, and they have to like train and train and train to actually try to act like somebody. But then in reality TV, just being yourself, it seems like it's more natural. I would say it's maybe.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. So I did a Wendy's commercial that was actually so hard for me to do, because I'm not an actress. Like you give me a script, that's not me. Like this is all this, like when I'm like in disbelief right here, like they were. That's why I love to make people laugh, but I don't. This is not me trying to make people laugh. I'm like, this is my family that I had the same camera guy most of the time. majority the same producer, or same PA. You know, it was a very small crew, but they were like my brothers. You know, I mean, they really were. So, like, so I forget that they're there, and so it kind of, I think that's what it plays off of. And this was this was hard to drive, but yeah, it was. I don't know. I'm just a very laid back person for the most. Well, I say laid back. I can be a little high strung at times, but
What's like the make and model of that car?
I don't know. That was like I think it's kind of like a SWAT. I don't know. It
Wow.
was. There were no mirrors in there. It could release like smoke and all of this. I'm surprised I didn't wreck
Wow.
it, to be honest.
What's a Ford?
Super Duty Ford. Wow.
But yeah, I had to drive that in Florida, and I couldn't see out any of the windows, so I was afraid I was going to hit something else. So I had people helping me. It was pretty cool. That one's a cool
That
one.
looks sweet.
I've actually never
Have you-
seen the inside of these. I've only seen the outside as they drive by.
It's
Have you-
super cool.
Have you used your skills that you picked up on the show in real life in the outside world? Like, has it benefited you at all?
Like
You ever strap anything down? You ever do
Like,
anything?
I'm not gonna lie. Like, if I see someone, like I've learned, like where you can flip the switch on like on a semi. I will say, like, if I see that's a little off, I'm like, you're about to get into trouble.
Okay.
Like those, yes. So, yes. If I see someone strap something down, yeah, like, I've
You're
always
judging. You're critiquing people's strap work. Would you say?
well strap work, but like another thing, my dad always carried a piece of wood in the back of his pickup truck, so I was always a tomboy growing up, and these guys, none of them could figure this one episode that wasn't on camera, and I was like, put a piece of wood down because the tires were spinning out, and they were like, why didn't I think of that? Because my dad like just would put it, because I learned that because I had a flat tire, so my dad came to the rescue when I was younger, and I was like, you carry a piece of wood? And he's like, yeah. So sure enough, so it's like little things like that like I'm like, just a flat piece of wood and your tires won't spin out if you're, gravel or mud. So just, I don't know, it's like a little thing like that I've learned. So
That's pretty. This is I mean, where are these, like, on demand? Are these episodes on demand? Where can you go and watch
I don't
these?
know. Y'all are pulling all this stuff up, and
This is from A&E, so I'm guessing on A&E's website you could probably just
have
like
to
get a
go look. That
subscription.
is so bizarre. Okay, the tiger episode. You remember Joe Exotic?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Of course.
I moved Tiger. Okay, well, the only reason I knew when the whole episode came out during COVID, I was watching it, which, my gosh, it was like a train wreck. You had to keep watching it, right? The guy that had the legs, that were cut off, the tats,
Yeah.
and I feel so bad, y'all. I'm not like that. I was like, did the tigers do that to your legs? And like, I can't believe I said that on camera because I'm not like, would never hurt somebody's feelings. But like, y'all, in the moment, if y'all saw how these tigers, how strong they were, I was like, the girl lost her arm. And so I was like, oh my God. I was like, holy crap. I was like, I moved Tigers. So I don't know if he was locked up there. I don't know if that was during the transition. Or I don't know where he was, because he would have been on camera. So I don't know where, but I had moved some tigers at that point for him.
Wow.
So that was pretty wild. I will say that.
Wow. That is wild.
Yeah. And I know that a lot of my, see, I was pregnant here. It was so hot. But yeah, and I didn't want to move anything. I didn't want to have a miscarriage. So I played off the pregnancy a lot. So, but no, like it was a lot, like I said, I met a lot of great people, a lot of good people. So, but the thing about, I think with my box truck or trailer is that you have to strap everything down like a little extra, like, you have to like load it in there, where like a flatbed, you can get a crane or something like it. So I feel like, to me, and maybe I'm wrong, because y'all deal with more, I guess, CDL drivers. To me, I feel like that'd be a little easier than strapping it down. Am I making any sense? You know how hard it is in that.
Do you think like driving a flatbed is like loading a flatbed is easier than a trailer? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm saying for me, because it's so hot in there, I was like, holy cow. I'd rather be out, because it's like, I feel like it's even a sauna in there, and I'm like, I got cameras on me. I'm like, get out the way. Like, I want to get in and out, So, no, I'm not saying it's easier to drive. I'm saying it's like, to me, I just feel like if you're having to load it on, you're having to, like, there's just so much crap that's happened to me. So,
Yeah, I'd say it's definitely riskier. Like flatbeds are definitely riskier because if you strap something incorrectly, like
No, I mean they could come off. I totally get that. I trust me, Jessica and I moved the blonde girl that came in afterwards that drove the semi. We moved some like some stones, and it took us 2 days to move. I mean, like people don't realize how long it took us. We were from sun up to sundown moving these things, and we had to go really slow. And we had to she strapped them down to her truck. So I mean, yeah, I totally get it. So I mean,
Jennifer, we do have to wrap up here, unfortunately.
no,
but thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. That was really it was great to have you and to learn more about you and Shipping Wars. Thank you for your time, and hopefully we'll have you back on soon.
Thank y'all.
See ya.
Take care, Jennifer. Bye.
That was super super interesting.
Wow, bang bang, back to back guests. We got this going.
Yeah,
so the first time we have bang back to back guests. What's up, Jason?
Hey, not much. How y'all doing?
Good.
Jason, this is a tough act to follow here, man. We got the I don't know if you were watching, but I think you
caught a little bit of
it here.
Yeah, I caught a minute or two of it. Yeah, I don't think mine will be nearly that interesting.
What's your reality TV show called, Jason? I'm gonna pull it up.
Yeah, managing people who can't be fired. That's enjoyable.
Nice. How old are you, Jason? You look younger than I thought you'd be.
I'm just 36.
36. Damn. Okay, you're young.
Yeah. No, I'm the youngest department head at Michigan State, my college, by about 20 years. So.
Oh, nice. Cool. I've been to Michigan State once. We played club volleyball at Michigan State. I think we might have beat them. I'm not sure, but I went to U of I. So what is it, Big Ten?
And I'm Ohio State PhD, so that always makes it interesting. Just the mutual hatred of the University of Michigan keeps everybody going.
Okay, so are you boys with Ken from DAT, because he's also Ohio State?
Yep. Yeah, Ken and I are frequently in communication. Yep. No, it's
all right.
For me, it's split loyalties. I mean, the paycheck does kind of matter. So,
well, it's been a rough couple of years for you, Ohio State people.
Yeah, no, it has.
Yeah, well, that's interesting.
How long have you been at Michigan State for now?
8 years.
All right.
Yep.
And did you start as like a guest professor there, associate professor, something like this? Or
yeah, so I started as an assistant prof, which is tenure system, basically up or out. You've got 6 years to publish enough to get tenure, otherwise you're fired. It doesn't matter how good of a teacher you are. It's all about the research. I made tenure in just 2.5, 3 years, and then you become an associate professor, and then you typically will wait 6 to 10 years to go up for full professor. I made full after 3. And so at this point, I'm capped out in my career for promotions. So once you make full, there's nothing higher than that.
So you basically have a job for the rest of your life if you want one.
Yep. I have a evergreen employment contract. Yes.
So, Jason, I kind of want to get right into this.
Yeah.
In a way, because I'm curious. You used to write articles for FreightWaves, and it seems like later on, I don't know, the relationship kind of changed. I was wondering if maybe you could touch on that a little bit, if you want to or not.
I mean, it's obviously public that I've been quite skeptical of some of the conclusions and things like that. And I've been always very uncomfortable not getting answers to what is the precise data that you're using. So as time went on, I had, let's just say, differing opinions about various things. Like I never was willing to accept that freight volumes in 2021 were, let's say, 30% or 25% above 2019, because that's just not mathematically possible type of thing.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So differing opinions over time.
Yeah. And in terms of mathematically not possible, what kind of drove you to that conclusion?
So if you think about it, productivity in trucking really hasn't fundamentally changed very much. And so you can't have employment being down a couple percent from before COVID, but handling 25% more freight. That's just not a mathematical probability. And so I became quite skeptical that their outbound tender volume data is not representative of the entirety of the trucking sector, because it's just not mathematically possible to have these massive movements that it was picking up, that it has to be more sector specific, say building materials retailing or general merchandise, or it seemed very retail centric and very much import centric, which is, anybody can tell, we've had a great couple months of containerized imports, but that hasn't changed the freight market at all. And so some of my work transitioned a little bit to, developing the trucking 10-mile index with my colleague Yembo Imole, and trying to sort of take a different, I'm going to say, economic look at the freight market. Bluntly, I'm very skeptical of high frequency data being that as useful as it's conveyed, especially when it comes to high frequency volume data, because it's inherently not representative of a lot of those small carriers out there that are not using electronic tenders. They're, calling up their buddy who they know who owns a manufacturing plant that they've been running freight for 15 years. And that's what the relationship is. There's no electronic tender anywhere in that system.
And it kind of makes sense because 97% of all trucking companies have like less than 6 trucks, basically.
Yeah.
So
it's a huge figure. No, the one thing was, we think about freight volume, though, is the vast majority of trucking companies are small, but in terms of how employment is split, that small number of very large firms does take up a much greater share of employment. It's like the top 50 over-the-road truckload carriers account for, believe it or not, actually about 40% of industry sales.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar to that. I've heard like it was a 33% split for like the bigger carriers, and then 66% for kind of everybody else.
Yep. The biggest share of capacity, and this is being inferred from inspections, and inspections are a pretty good index of who's actually operating. The biggest sort of size category is 20 to 100 power units. That's where probably that a big chunk of capacity is. Then you've got a small number of big carriers are disproportionate. And then you've got all the little folks with your for-hire owner operators making up like 10 to 15% of capacity, give or take, based on inspections.
So what got you into all this? How did you get going in transportation?
Yeah, so my dad was a driver in the 80s, primarily hauled steel and machinery out of Cleveland to Baltimore, ironically enough, and then back. And then he went to work for International, so Navistar, as a sales engineer. And so I grew up around the industry. And then when I got into the PhD program, one of the faculty at Ohio State, John Soldani, he's now, I believe, the Sears chair at the University of West Virginia. John had just completed a very large-scale survey effort, really trying to be the first to really look at how do carriers try to, formally and informally sort of shape drivers' behaviors, looking at technology and things like that well before the LD mandate. But then that survey was done right at the time the CSA program started up. And so that was kind of a natural connection to look, formal controls, driver turnover, safety. And then pretty much just, academia, the name of the game is publish. And when you had a program like the CSA program, and it was pretty easy to identify your population of big firms, one thing led to another. So I beat the living bejesus out of that data to get enough publications for tenure, and then started to diversify into, driver turnover, industry level employment stuff, pricing dynamics, things of that sort, because nobody was really looking at this stuff, but it was easy to sell the value of it.
Jason, do you think that there's a driver shortage?
Nope. Yeah, absolutely not.
Are you plugged in to the topic of discussion on Twitter or X?
No, I avoid Twitter, but like the plug. But no, I've Bob Costello and I, we know each other. We'll email from time to time, but obviously Bob and I have very different feelings on that. My statement is this: I have studied labor economics. I have published labor economics research. there's specific criteria that have been advanced by labor economists for what represents a shortage. And one of the key things is that employment in that sector should never really decline. And all you have to do is say, trucking employment plunged in 2001, 2008 and 9, 2016, didn't really plunge then, but it dropped, 2019, and now 2023. That's not consistent with a shortage.
Yeah. It's a useful narrative for certain parties, though.
Oh, it's a very useful narrative, and I think the big challenge is instead what you have is a high turnover issue, and that if you are the average carrier, again, let's say the average long haul over the road driver turnover rate's 80%, right? It really doesn't matter the economic conditions. You're still trying to fill empty trucks at any point in time, so that feels like there's a shortage. But the reality is that when we think of shortage, that means essentially, not get too wonky and economic-y, but a true shortage would mean that supply is not responding to price signals. And every time we see spot rates go through the roof, what happens? Carriers order more equipment, and then they start, either expanding themselves or new entrants take place. And that's a dynamic that we would not see if there was a structural shortage.
Yeah, if I would ask smaller carriers about the driver shortage, let's say a couple of years ago even, it was always a matter of, it came down to a matter of like quality that they were really referring to, or really ultimately driver turnover. But overall, I would say in general, it was lower turnover for smaller companies, like 30 to 40 trucks. And at least the last time I checked, which was a few years ago, I think at least the data that was online, which I don't know if it's all accurate, but it was like the top 1% of the largest trucking companies. They had something like a 97 or 100% turnover rate, which I don't know if you've heard something similar to that, but I remember these like driver bonuses were crazy at the time too. Companies were offering like $14,000, $15,000, $16,000 sign-on bonuses just to try to recruit drivers. And did you hear something similar to that?
Yeah. So, I mean, we've always, that 100% figure, that's always been common. I mean, the survey research that we did even back in 2011. So, on the other side of the Great Recession, there were many carriers that reported turnover rates in the 120s, 130s. So those numbers are common. And the one thing to keep in mind, those people hear that and they say, oh my God, that means if you've got 100 trucks, you had to replace all your drivers in a year. It's like, no, typically most carriers have a very stable core of drivers, call it 70, 80%, who are there the entire year. And it's that remaining 20 to 30% of seats that they end up filling multiple times throughout the year as folks come in, realize that firm isn't for them, and then they leave.
Yeah, that's not exactly a detail that the data seemed to care about providing.
Oh, no. And it's funny. There's actually been no distinction even in the academic literature in trucking between this, what we call core and peripheral turnover that folks in management have been talking about now for a decade. The other thing to consider, though, is if you go back 20 years to, let's say, 04, 05, the ATA's turnover data was like 130, 140% for large carriers. So turnover actually used to be a much bigger problem 20 years ago than it is today.
Wow.
What's your, why? Why do you think that is?
So a couple factors. One is there's good evidence that 25, 30, 40 years, I should say 20 to 30 years ago, trucking was a more dynamic industry, and that firms that started up, a major share of them would expand more than they do today, but also failure rates were substantially higher 30 years ago than they are today. A lot of that I'd attribute to the changing nature of how carriers get freight. 30 years ago, brokerage was not what it was today. I mean, brokerage essentially had a bad name. It was really only for backhauls. And so pretty much if you were a small trucking company, you'd attach yourself to a couple local manufacturers, you'd haul their freight as a head haul, and then you get whatever you could as backhaul. But what that meant is if one of those little manufacturers goes out of business, your firm's gone, because we didn't have a dynamic market where you could easily more easily reallocate capacity.
Yeah.
Today, with that secular increase in brokerage penetration, you have some more flexibility in that you still may have a couple anchor shippers like that. But if one of those fails, you can at least temporarily get enough brokered freight or enough load board freight to survive until you can find a different contractual partner.
Mm-hmm.
And so to tie all this together, one thing we've always found is people who've been more likely to be laid off are also subsequently more likely to quit. And so one reason is you have a driver pool out there where layoffs aren't what they used to be 30 years ago. And so that probably reduces that quitting propensity. Also, the availability of alternative jobs. I mean, 20 years ago was the middle of the housing boom that then turned into a bust. And so that certainly probably played a role. Plus, you had more manufacturing employment 20 years ago than what you did today.
Mm-hmm. What is your like outlook for the near future of trucking? I don't mean necessarily from like a predict when the market's going to rebound standpoint. I just mean like what trends are you looking at? Like where do you think the industry is going? Like is it growing? Is it shrinking? Like how does kind of this whole like nearshoring thing factor in? Like what do you think about all that?
So I would say nearshoring is very, very, very small piece of the picture.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's mostly going to be affecting a lot of freight in the, Texas, Arizona, Southern California area from a overall standpoint. Because a lot of it, if it's got to move a very long distance inland, it's going to end up moving by rail up north anyway. So I'd say reshoring, the impact on trucking dramatically overstated. The vast majority of stuff that got moved overseas in the 2 rounds of offshoring after one, China, we normalized trade relations with China in 2020 or in 2000. There was a huge wave of offshoring through about 03, 04. Kind of died down a little bit for a couple years, and then starting in 07 through 10, there was just this second massive wave of offshoring. Most of what's been offshored, it's not coming back. Furniture manufacturing in this country will never be what it was in 2000 in 1997. Those days are gone. So I'd say reshoring overstated. Really, the wins of trucking are entirely a function of where we're seeing, domestic manufacturing domestic fracking, wholesaling activity. Right now, all of those sectors are still comparatively weak. We're starting to see some signs of improvement, but it's going to be I think, slower slog. Trade with Asia, China is not doing well economically. Europe is not doing well economically. And so those are going to be headwinds for domestic trucking volumes because that means fewer exports to those countries. When the market does turn, I think it'll be very gradual. This is going to look much more like 2013, 2014 than it certainly is not going to look like 2020, where we went from, the lights being off in April and May into, walking into the sun by July. That's not what it's going to look like. It won't even look like 17, where we had a fairly quick switch in Q2 and Q3 from a rising bull market into, at the time, what was the strongest bull market in memory.
Yeah.
So that's what about like how do you see technology like impacting things? Like we have, I mean, what are your thoughts on electric trucks? I'm just in autonomous. Like, how do you see that factoring in?
So electric, very niche applications, got to be there and back again, relatively short haul, may make sense for drayage work and things of that sort, even though drayage drivers tend to operate the oldest, most beat up trucks, which is kind of balancing that out. I mean, yeah, we'll see, your JB Hunts, that are doing dedicated loads to and from destinations that are 120 miles away. Maybe there it makes sense, but you're over the road drivers. There's not a chance in the world that electrification is coming anytime soon. Autonomous, it's exciting for, I think, the media, but in reality, we ain't even anywhere close to the fully autonomous vehicle. Price is way too high. And I think the big thing is you need balanced freight to make this really work, because it's a much bigger capital investment. And so, sure, you'll see it. Yeah, Houston to Dallas, there'll be certain city pair combinations you'll see this run on. But, you ain't going to be taking an autonomous vehicle to a manufacturing plant in my home county of Defiance, Ohio. Like that's just not going to be a major application for that. So, again, I think there'll be applications, but it'll be with the mega carriers running dedicated loads that are moving a relatively short distance. Eventually, and this is the eventually part, if you could get a truly autonomous vehicle that doesn't have hours of service restrictions, and that's the key thing, there can't be HOS restrictions on this stuff at the end of the day. You could certainly chip away at, let's say, the parts of long haul intermodal. Let's say those 800 to 1200 mile movements, there's a business case. Probably not the 2000 or 2500 mile movements, because rail's still so much more energy efficient than truck is going to be. But there could be a business case for chipping away at those shorter distance intermodal hauls. Let's say a Southern California to Dallas, that one may become attractive to do a self-driving vehicle in comparison to, Los Angeles to Chicago. That's going to stick by train.
I've always actually found it ironic that the merging or the conversion of those two conversions of those two technologies actually are ironically working against each other, because electrification, for example, we have somebody said here that a T680 electric costs $447,000. The range is going to be shorter than if you were to be using a diesel truck, right? And so obviously then you have to recharge, and the recharging for that big of a battery pack is going to take much longer. The truck's going to be out of service more, right? But then you have, let's say that the self-driving truck companies don't go bankrupt before they actually deploy, but that they actually deploy this technology on a single lane, right? Now all of a sudden you get that benefit of being able to have getting around like those hours of service, but at the same time the truck won't be able to operate like 22/7. I guess it will be, I don't know how long it takes to charge one of those packs fully, but even if it does charge fully on a smaller pack, you have to charge it more frequently. So like at the end of the day, like I don't know if it's just funny how those two things kind of work against each other in a way.
No, and to me the biggest issue is going to be there's for hire and leased owner operators in every congressional district who are going to be telling their Congress people, do not dare change the hour of service rules on this technology, right? So this is going to be where the next big regulatory battle with HOS is going to be, because that self-driving vehicle only makes sense if it's under different hours of service rules. But while you still have to have a driver in that vehicle still paying attention, then there's going to be a clear case made not to change the hours of service. I don't know any truck driver who wants to babysit a computer either. I think that that's the one dynamic that many of these self-driving trucking companies just have no concept of. If they would have read any of the books written by sociologists talking about the psychology of being a driver, and my dad was a driver, so I've got firsthand understanding of this. No good truck driver wants to babysit a computer, right? That is not what they want to do. Plus, the other thing is self-driving vehicles. Yeah, they're okay on the highway, but let's see them do an actual delivery in a congested, industrial park, or take a construction job site, right? There's not a chance in the world a self-driving vehicle is going to be able to drive, onto a, subdivision and deliver lumber. This is not going to happen. And so you're ultimately going to have a driver handling a lot of the short distance moves, which now basically means we've created a baby intermodal system where there's still going to have to be a local drayage piece. But that now requires a lot more coordination than a point-to-point system. So I've always thought that the technology side of the self-driving vehicle has been being developed independent of the day-to-day operational side of trucking, as well as the realities of freight networks in the United States.
Well, because these companies are skipping, in my opinion, they're skipping and trying to jump multiple levels of automation instead of basically pressing up those levels of automation and kind of like maturing the system by proving that disengagements over many, many miles decrease over time, which is, in my opinion, the best way to prove like the safety of the technology itself. It just requires that you have tons of miles being driven. It's like the best example, the only probably example of that right now that's actually being done successfully is Tesla's full self-driving program, which sure still has a lot of bugs and interventions, but like they just have this mass scale of vehicles driving and they're understanding how people are driving, and now they're actually performing like an imitation of how humans drive. And it's very recent updates are very fluid. I don't know if that will easily scale and transfer to trucking, but for the most part, definitely from what I'm seeing, it's I was always a believer, don't skip those levels and go straight for automation like a lot of these self-driving truck companies do. Just progress your way up through more driver assistive capabilities. And I do agree with you though that like drivers don't want to babysit a system either.
Why would a driver not want to be able to just like hit a button when they're on the highway and pay and not have to be like turned on all the time driving straight for 500 miles?
I think a lot of it is there's a pride to, you are captain of that ship. You believe you can, run better than a computer can. I think that, so I guess the claim could be made this is like autopilot for an airplane, but I mean, these are two totally different worlds in terms of airplane, 35,000 feet. There is nothing else around it at that point versus semi on the highway. This is a different, like there's nothing else around it. I don't think the analogy plays out well. The other, again, and the thing is too with self-driving vehicles is you need really long hauls to justify this because, when you think about it, what you're trying to do is leverage a non-hours of service situation. The problem is the average distance that loads move in the United States has been shrinking secularly since the 1990s. So when you had deregulation in 1980, the average length of haul for hire truckload carriers actually increased very substantially from 1977 before dereg to the late 90s. And that was because truck picked up a lot of long haul railroad freight that ended up switching over because of service. But then in the 90s, as we shifted away from manufacturing and more towards a wholesaling model, in terms of, where a lot of freight originates at, I mean, manufacturing still most freight, but it's not as much as it was in the 90s. Now the average length of haul is shorter and shorter and shorter compared to what it used to be. And that actually pushes against the self-driving vehicle because most wholesaler shipments don't even go 150 or 200 miles. And
completely fair point.
And so that's where it's always been interesting for me. And I've talked, I won't name the names, but to a couple of the self-driving vehicle, manufacturers and been trying to say like, look, are you looking at the economics for the business case? Because you all see the technology and that's great and wonderful. But what I see as a freight economist is a freight market that's actually moving in the opposite direction of what you want. And if you think that electric vehicles are suddenly going to get your carbon footprint under control compared to rail, there is no electrification situation where you're going to run a 2,000-mile load even remotely close to as efficient as the railroad is. Forget about that. That's decades away.
So Jason, you said about like the drivers might not want to adopt this technology, which I get. I totally understand that perspective because I actually myself was a driver, so I got that viewpoint of like why people might not like it. But the what do you think about from the owner of a fleet perspective. Like if, for example, the vehicle is able to statistically, at least a manufacturer is able to prove that technology's able to prevent more accidents. Like I know for a fact that like drivers using at least a Tesla Autopilot or their self-driving technology are like, it's about a one accident every 110 million miles versus drivers without using it. It's one accident every 80 million miles, which is more frequent. So that's already telling me that it's it's at least improving some of the safety.
So I mean, there could be that benefit. I think the question though is now you start thinking about, you know, issues of maintenance. If that vehicle goes down, you know, I can find mechanics to fix a regular Class 8 vehicle relatively straightforward. Am I looking at this truck's now down for 3, 4, 5 weeks, and all of a sudden it just turned into a giant money pit? And so to me, if I was thinking about being a fleet owner, it would be one, what type of runs am I doing? Does this autonomous vision, you know, autonomous system fit well in that network structure? Two, what is the total cost of this? And three, I mean, again, if you have vehicles go down, what is the timeline to get them repaired? And so I think that the challenge is, you know, every time you add more robots, you now need to add robot techs, and robot techs are not something that is a skill set that's, it's the same way, you know, even electric vehicles, right? You're seeing that maintenance shops are having tremendous challenges with handling maintenance for EVs compared to regular gasoline engines, because all the training for maintenance techs is gasoline engines.
Absolutely. All right, Jason, thank you very much for joining us. We're out of time for today, but this was a super interesting conversation. Reed, I don't know if you have any closing thoughts.
No, Jason, it'd be cool to have you on semi-regularly if you're interested.
Yeah,
It's always good to talk to somebody who's actually like thought long and hard about things that the rest of us kind of just like, you know, pretend like we might know what we're talking about. It's easy to like say things in this world because there's like the data is so all over the place. It's easy to just like say things and just like sound like you know what you're talking about, and if it sounds right, then it must be right. Like, and that's what allows a lot of people to just get away with saying basically whatever they want. So it's nice to, you know, every once in a while talk to somebody who's like got access to information and is, you know, thinking about these things long and hard. So
absolutely.
Yeah. No, fortunate that the taxpayers in Michigan pay me to do that. So yeah, no, I'm happy to come on. My Fridays are usually somewhat flexible. So
awesome, Jason. Thank you so much. And Reed, we want to pull up the gong, I guess.
Yeah, let's ring the gong to close this out. You want to do it?
Yeah. We got
Jason, one of these days you might have to do a study on the effects of gongs onto the transportation industry.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
We didn't hear it.
We'll see you next week.
Okay, that's fine. All right, see ya.
Oh, sorry.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks, Jason. Bye.